and making my way towards the front of the ranch house.
And when you made your way over to the front door, or to the front of the ranch house, what did you observe when you got there?
When I got there, I observed a lady that was at the door of the ranch house, at the front door of the ranch house. I wasn't quite at the front door, I never made it that way. But I talked to the lady, I wanted to make sure she was okay. The lady stated that she was okay. Lady stated that approximately...
Your Honor, I'm not offering this for the proof of the matter asserted, but for what this officer did next and why he went the direction he did.
The objection's overruled. So I think this is the first time I'm giving you something that we call in the law a limiting instruction, okay? And that means I'm giving an instruction about what the evidence is being admitted for that the witness is going to testify to. So the question was, what did the lady, who we all assume is Mrs. Kelly, say to him? And that is hearsay because Mrs. Kelly is not here in court testifying to it. But it's not offered, here's the instruction. This is not offered for the truth of the matter asserted. So it's not offered, and you should not consider it, you should not consider what you were about to hear that Mrs. Kelly said as being proof of the truth about what she's saying, okay? It's only being offered to explain what this officer did next, all right? So just theoretically, hypothetically, putting this situation aside, hearsay can be admitted. Let's say some other case, some person yells, there's a fire, there's a fire, there's a fire, it's burning over there. It might not be true at all, but it explains why the firemen ran, or the police ran to that location and went to that location. Could turn out to be true, could turn out not to be true. It's not offered to prove that there was a fire or that fire is actually existing. It's offered to prove what this witness did next to explain his subsequent actions. So for those reasons, with a limiting instruction, the objection is overruled. That's, I went a little far on that than I usually do. That's to explain what a limiting instruction is and why we do it.
Thank you. Agent Heredia, you said there was a woman, a lady at the home, is that right?
That is correct.
Did you at any point discover the identity of that lady?
No, I didn't know her name, I didn't know who she was.
No problem. And so you spoke with her. Could you describe her? Do you recall anything about her description?
The clothing, I cannot recollect the clothing. I know she had white hair, elderly looking lady.
Okay, thank you. And so you spoke with this lady, and what was it that she said to you at that point?
Again, I asked if she was okay. She stated she was okay. She stated that 15 minutes prior to my arrival, her husband and her had seen approximately 5 individuals or 5 subjects near the south end of the property that were carrying long arms and bundles of narcotics.
And what did she tell you next?
She said that her husband had taken off after them, and she pointed in this gesture, pointing south. She said that her husband had taken off walking south towards the subjects, I assumed.
Now you described the area where you hopped the fence, so I'm going to show you a map. If it's all right with the court, I'm just going to show the electronic version. Agent Heredia, do you recognize this general map?
Yes, I do.
And what does that appear to be?
That appears to be George Allen Kelly's residence, the ranch.
And Your Honor, the state moves for admission of State's Exhibit 114.
No objections, Your Honor.
114 is admitted.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Can you publish it?
just for the jury's information, this is actually 114, the slide says 115, just so as not to cause any confusion. And can you tell me, sir, is this the area, can you tell the jury how you approached the residence when you first got there that day?
Okay, I parked at the front gate. Is there a way I can show them here on screen or no?
Yes, if you touch on the upper left, there should be a little stylus. It'll give you a color. There you go. And then you can just touch the screen with the stylus.
That is the front gate that I was referring to. I parked my vehicle right next to that front gate. I got off the vehicle with my service-issued rifle, my M4 rifle, and I hopped the fence, made my way down this road. Sorry. This is a stylus. All right, sounds good.
And Agent Heredia, before you try to draw on that, sir, I'm gonna make it a little larger.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Is that helpful?
That is.
Are you able to see the gates on the zoomed-in zoomed-in
I am.
photograph?
I
Okay,
am.
could you show us then where the gates are?
It should be right around this area.
And that's the area where you parked your car and hopped the gate?
That is correct.
And then where did you approach the house?
I jumped the fence here, walked towards the house this way. I remember at that time there was a truck parked here, and I make my way here, and I think Mrs. Kelly was right there at her front door.
Okay, and that's where she was when you spoke with her?
That is correct.
What's the next thing you did after you spoke with Mrs. Kelly and she told you that her husband had gone south after the subjects?
Okay, I told Mrs. Kelly to shelter in place. My concern at that time was armed individuals, and I was by myself. So I went back to my truck to wait for backup. And that's what I did, hopped the fence and then waited for backup at my truck.
Okay, and were you aware that backup was on the way?
Yes, I was aware.
And how did you know that?
Because my agent, my partner, Agent Paul Duggan, who was riding a separate vehicle, also acknowledged the traffic.
Did you hear anything at that point?
Once my partner arrived, I could hear sirens in the background, and it turned out to be Santa Cruz County Sheriff officers.
So were they very far behind?
They were several seconds behind my partner.
And then after you heard the officers, after the other officers arrived, what did y'all do?
So we had once I made contact with the Santa Cruz County officers, I told them the information that Mrs. Kelly had given me. And again, our priority was armed individuals. So we made our way back to the house, to the ranch house. I'm gonna give you this. So I met with officers there. We made our way back. And then we did like a hasty perimeter check.
And what do you mean by a hasty perimeter check?
Hasty perimeter check, we just checked around this area, make sure that everything was okay, there was no armed individuals in the area.
And what was the purpose of doing that?
Again, we're looking for, first of all, the well-being of Mr. Kelly, and make sure that there was no immediate threat to the residents of the house and to us.
And after you did that perimeter check, what did y'all do at that point?
After the quick hasty perimeter check, I don't know the direction where everybody went, but we fanned out. So I just saw like sheriffs going this way, sheriffs going this way. My partner, Paul Duggan, and I believe we went this way. I don't believe we went that way. We went south, in the direction where Miss Kelly had pointed that her husband had taken off to.
And I'd like to show it's another exhibit, so if we could take this one off. So I just want to make sure, you said you headed off in the southerly direction, and if I'm clear, that's because of what Mrs. Kelly told you about where Mr. Kelly went, is that correct?
That is correct.
And so, I'm going to show you another exhibit. Could you take a look at State's Exhibit 115 on your screen, please?
Yes, ma'am.
And does that appear to be a larger map of the Kelly property?
It is.
Your Honor, move for admission of State's Exhibit 115.
Your Honor, I have no objection. Of course, this exhibit says 114. It would be good if they would cross that off and mark it as 115. It's getting confusing when the numbers aren't the numbers that they're supposed to be.
Exhibit submitted. Exhibit 115 is submitted, and next break for that. State view.
Your Honor, it's not the exhibits that are the issue. The exhibits are properly marked. It's just the slides. And could we publish, please, with the court's permission? And sir, you said you headed out from the house and that you headed south.
Correct.
Do you see a dirt road on this map?
Yes, I do.
Did you follow that dirt road or did you go a different direction?
No, I didn't follow the dirt road. I'll use the term bushwhacking. We just went through the brush across that dirt road.
And could you show the jury what direction generally you and your partner traveled?
Yes. So from the house, that is more or less the direction we traveled. We didn't cross the road. I overreached there, but we didn't. We stayed on the road. That's when we saw Mr. Kelly walking towards us. So when we got to this point, okay, I'm gonna clear it now. Mr. Kelly was walking this way towards us with his two dogs.
Okay, we'll get to that in just a second. I
Yes.
want to talk about your trip. And I just want to make sure, you said earlier that your partner Dugan was with you, is that right?
That is correct.
So the two of you were traveling together on this path through the property.
Correct.
And when you traveled through that property, I see that the line you drew looks like you went through a wash. Did you go through a wash or an arroyo?
Yes, we went through a wash, a royal, yes.
And when you traveled through that area, did you make any observations of any kind at that point?
No,
Did you see any people or any sign of foot traffic?
no, I didn't see any people, I didn't see any.
Were you looking for foot traffic at that point?
I was just looking for, armed individuals for the safety, but no, I wasn't looking for any particular groups or anything like that.
Okay, so but you didn't see anyone as you were traveling through there?
No, I did not see anyone.
And when you approached the road and you saw Mr. Kelly coming, which direction was Mr. Kelly coming? And was he on the road, was he on the trail, or off the road, or where was he?
He was on the road and he was walking that direction, but on the road.
And you said he had his two dogs with him?
He had his two dogs with him, very friendly, came out to greet us, they licked our hands. They were just very playful dogs.
And what did you observe about Mr. Kelly as you saw him walking down the road?
When he was walking towards us, he had a rifle cradled on his left arm, kind of like the way hunters cradle their rifles. That's the way he had his rifle.
And I see you making a gesture, but could you show the jury what you mean by that?
Yes. So the rifle he was cradling, he had his arm like this, and the rifle was cradled across his chest.
So across his chest diagonally and over his right shoulder?
I believe. Yes. Yes.
And holding it with his left arm?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And when you observed him, after you greeted the dogs, what's the next thing you did?
Mr. Kelly, I advised Mr. Kelly, I asked him if he was okay. Mr. Kelly said he was okay. And then he stated that I told him that we responded to the area because the call came in that there were people shooting at him in his property. He stated that he had seen around 5 to 7 individuals carrying bundles of narcotics around the ranch house.
Could you pause for a second? Does that accurately reflect the statement you just made?
Yes.
And he told you they were carrying narcotics?
Yes, they were carrying bundles of narcotics, yes.
Did he say anything about seeing any firearms?
No.
And what's the next thing he told you?
He stated that he knew the difference between regular illegal aliens and mules because he had been living in the area for a long time.
And what did he tell you his observations were about these people?
After we kept on walking on the road, and after that, he stated that he had heard a gunshot.
Let me stop you a second. I want to go back to his statements about knowing the difference between whether someone's an immigrant or what was the other phrase he used?
A mules.
Okay,
Mules.
a mule. And when he indicated that he knew the difference between the two, did he tell you what was the difference in his mind?
Well, the mules carry big bundles of marijuana on their backs, big bundles of narcotics. On their
That's what he told you?
He said bundles of narcotics.
Okay. And so did he tell you how he knew and which he believed they were?
He believed they were mules because of the big bundles, and he had been living in that area for a long time, and he could tell the difference between a regular illegal immigrant and a mule.
And at that point, did he reference large backpacks as well?
Yes.
So does that statement on your screen now accurately reflect what Mr. Kelly told you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And what did he say happened next?
He said that he had heard a gunshot. He had heard
Did he tell you when, was that before or after he saw these individuals?
After he saw him. After he saw him, he heard a gunshot, and that he did not know where the gunshot came from or whom had shot. But he did emphasize that he saw the mules running back south towards the international boundary fence as if they were scared.
And the statement I have on your screen, does that accurately reflect what Mr. Kelly told you?
Yes.
And you said additionally that he didn't know where the shot came from?
Correct.
Or who shot?
Correct.
And that they appeared scared?
Correct.
And does that accurately reflect what Mr. Kelly told you?
Yes, it does.
Did he tell you anything else at that time?
No.
Did he ever say that he was shot at?
No, he never stated that.
He just said he heard a shot.
Correct.
Did he ever tell you at any point that he saw any weapons?
No, he did not say.
Did he ever mention anyone pointing a weapon at him?
No, he never said that.
Did he ever tell you that he was afraid?
No.
Object to leading.
No, he never stated that he was afraid. He didn't look like he was afraid. He was calm. He didn't look nervous to me.
So his demeanor at that point was very calm?
Yes, very respectful, very, very calm.
The weapon he was carrying, did he ever tell you that he discharged that weapon?
No, he never stated that.
That's all I have for this witness. Thank you, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you want me to statements or read them?
How are you doing? Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I did have to go back to have him take a look at the time. I forgot to ask him that question. Could I do that? I figured out it's Exhibit 53. Showing you what's been marked as State Exhibit 53, and I'm going to flip to the page that's your report. Have you refreshed your recollection?
Yes,
So was it the time you were dispatched 2:40 or the time you arrived 2:40?
it was the time I was dispatched, the time that the radio call came through.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Yes.
That's all I had, Your Honor, thank you.
Would you like this copy?
You guys have problems with putting back up your 114? Yeah. Do you mind putting up
No,
114?
no. You need this one?
Yeah, I might have to flip to the other one. May I proceed, Your Honor? Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. So you are the first law enforcement representative to arrive at this, I'm going to call it for short, the Vermilion Ranch, correct?
Yes.
And had you ever been there before?
Not at the ranch house itself, but I've worked that area before.
Okay. So knowing the area, how far is that excuse me, got the hiccups. How far is that location to the border wall? If you were to go as a crow flies, what would you say it was?
About a mile.
A mile? And there's no direct road to it, right? I mean, it's kind of a roundabout way to get there if you were in a vehicle, correct?
To get to the border?
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay. So roads aren't like a crow fly, but there's terrain in between that, Mr. Kelly's house and the first point of the border wall, correct?
Correct.
Now, in this terrain, and it's hard to tell visually when you're not looking perpendicular to the ground, but from the aerial view, we have State's Exhibit 114 still up on the overhead. Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Now, this area is encompassed with other ranches around it also, correct?
Correct.
So it's not an easy place to just stumble upon, is it?
No, it's not.
Now, you said you worked this area for quite a bit, is that right?
That is correct.
And you actually expressed your knowledge about this terrain, not only possibly a little bit in your report, but also to Detective Einza, didn't you?
Correct.
So let's talk about this area as it relates to what Mr. Kelly believed is his knowledge as far as it's concerning mules and trafficking. What do you know about it and the dangers of this area?
Objection, improper request for opinion testimony from a lay witness.
Go ahead, sir.
It is what I'm giving you is my personal opinion about the area.
And your knowledge from experience, sir.
It's a dangerous area that we work.
Okay? elaborate why you believe it's dangerous from your observations and your experiences.
For us, it's a,
Excuse me, can I just show an ongoing objection? Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
for us, it's dangerous because it seems that out there in that desert, everything's out to get you, from the vegetation to the heat, potential, bad individuals. That's what we consider a dangerous area.
So bad individuals, it's not a normal place for someone to go rob a bank, is it?
No,
Okay, so we got a different type of bad individuals. What's the activity that you would classify some examples that would fall under people that are these bad folks that you're describing?
we could potentially run into armed individuals, that are up to no good in that area.
So when someone's armed out there, it wouldn't surprise you if this family saw armed individuals, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And what known activities or reasons do you believe, with your experience, would be going on if a person's sitting there armed, especially with long arms?
If there's an armed individual out there, either it could be a hunter or it could be a bad person, usually guarding the narcotic loads coming through the area.
Okay. So the fact that Mr. Kelly has lived out there for quite some time, that's what you learned, right?
Correct.
He was acknowledging with you that he was aware of the potential terrain and potential dangers of his property, right?
Well, he stated that he knew what the subjects that he had seen, he knew that they were mules because he could tell the difference.
And so over the years, there's been migrants, people, just trying to get over the border for the American dream, but there's been illegal activity in this area, and he felt his experience, did you interpret it this, that he felt that he knew the difference. This wasn't just people trying to run over the border.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
The question was how this witness interpreted what Mr. Kelly was telling him, so the objection's overruled.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, my interpretation, from what he said, he stated that he had seen mules, not illegal aliens.
And the fact that he's been there long enough and acknowledged that, you had no reason to disbelieve that he believed that to be happening, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because it was reasonable, correct?
It was
Objection, Your Honor,
correct.
again, calls for speculation.
It's what he feels, sir.
Hold on. What was the objection? I'm sorry.
Speculation.
What was the question?
I asked if he believed it was reasonable. Asked for this witness' belief.
Objection's overruled.
I
Okay,
believe it was reasonable.
thank you, sir. Now, you knew you were there because shots were fired, right?
That's what the call came through, that shots were fired in the area.
So therefore, there had to be guns if that statement was true, correct?
Correct.
And the fact that you first interchanged with Mrs. Kelly, or the gray-headed senior woman, confirmed independently, now that you're looking hindsight, confirmed that that call was potentially legit call, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And she was a nice lady, wasn't she?
She was.
And you had no reason to believe that she was lying to you?
I did not.
Did you learn that she was only in the house?
I only saw her in the house. I didn't know who else was in the house.
So I didn't ask that, but did you learn that that's all she never came outside, that the whole time she's been in the house? Did you learn that?
No, my
Okay.
first initial encounter was her at the door. of the
Okay.
front house.
But she greeted you at the door as you walked up. Did you knock, or was she peeking out the glass door?
No, she was already out when I got there, and I never made it to the front entrance. I never made it quite to the door of the house.
Okay. Now, they do have glass doors. Are you aware of that?
No,
Okay. And they have a lot of glass windows. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of it.
It's just what
I
you know,
believe-
sir. Just what you know. And I'm just checking to see what you know.
Not aware.
Okay. Now, so she didn't make it clear where she saw these people running, correct?
She just stayed at the south end of her property.
Okay. So you don't know whether with that comment, you don't know if she observed it from within her house or outside the house, right?
I have no idea to
Okay.
that, yes.
Now, when things were over, the extreme situation was over, You made a note that Alan Kelly followed or ran after, what was the words that you used?
She stated that she pointed south, and gestured like I'm doing, stating that Mr. Allen had taken after the direction of the subjects walking.
Okay. Now, so he was walking, and you don't know if Mrs. Kelly, or the person that was in the home, and Mr. Kelly, which you later met, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You don't even know if they had any communications since this event took place.
No, I did not know that.
Okay. So, if her version of it could be from what she observed, correct?
Correct.
That she knew he was walking in the direction south
Correct.
with the two dogs.
She never stated anything about dogs.
Okay, you saw the dogs.
When I met with Mr. Kelly, yes, when I saw him first.
And those dogs followed him everywhere, didn't they?
Yes, they were following him.
But they're very curious dogs, aren't they?
They are. Friendly.
And they are, they are almost true to their breed, but always looking around, smelling out everything, curious about the terrain as you all are walking, correct?
Yes, they were kind of like running circles around him, playfully.
But they were interested also in the terrain. Did you notice? Almost like a hunting technique. They're smelling and observing everything on the ground and anything around them.
I did not notice that.
Okay. But inquisitive. They were curious about you.
Yes, they were.
And they approached you to see who you were.
They did.
Okay. And you didn't call.
No, I did not call them.
And how many dogs were there?
2 dogs.
Okay. Now, looking at this exhibit that's posted on there, redraw the line that you took once you left the house to go start to search around.
Once I left the initial house after we did the hasty perimeter check, is that what you mean?
You got back up. Went back to the house. So let's start with that perimeter check. And that's for your safety and the homeowner's safety, correct?
Correct.
All right. So put that circle around the house as you did before. Okay, now, would it be that wide of a, or closer to the home?
I think that would be reasonable.
Okay, did you were aware of the barbed wire fencing that exists in the back of the house?
I believe I did see the barbed wire fence, but I'm not entirely aware of where it is because I've never been to that ranch house.
Okay.
I worked around the area of the ranch
And
house.
you didn't personally work the field that is behind the house that everyone else searched, correct?
No, Agent Paul Duggan and I, we kind of stayed around this area. We never went here or
Okay.
this area.
You drew some lines before, I'd like you to put them back on, of the search outward while you guys went the other way and ultimately met Mr. Kelly.
So as we were walking down towards Mr. Kelly, from my observations,
Why don't you use a different color on that one?
I will, let me,
You can hit undo.
One of the jurors has asked for them to enlarge the picture a little bit.
I have no objection.
All right.
Does that help?
Can you move it at all? Can you move it to the, I think that's wherever you have the alleged something.
This way, Judge?
Let's undo your markings.
will do.
Is that good?
All right. So let's start with the perimeter. We've cleared the board. Since we blew it up, it changes your markings. Now, ultimately, while this is blown up, are you able to show where your car was parked at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you notice, there's also colors that you could change, okay?
If you bring that house a little bit south, because the gate is way up the top, I think that's better.
Okay, just show that.
Okay, I'm gonna show it in one color and then I'll switch colors.
All right,
That's where my vehicle was parked.
okay. The direction you took that ultimately you found Mr. Kelly would be the opposite way of the vehicle or the same direction?
Opposite way of the vehicle,
And
south.
if I could ask the state now to move the screen to just where that dot is at the top, so we can go downward. And we're still.
I'm gonna clear the dot again.
Okay, all right. That's right there. Go ahead and put your dot on there. Thank you. All right. Now, you went down, you greeted Miss Kelly, you went back, you got some backup, and then you came back into the property, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, you had some lines, well, first of all, the perimeter search of the house. Let's go ahead and draw that. You could use, let's just use one other color for the searches.
Switch colors for the searches. So that's
Okay.
a kind of hasty perimeter check, approximate.
Okay. Now, earlier, when the state was asking you questions, you started to show which way you went, and we could keep that, and you were part of this circle, right? I mean, you were searching the perimeter too.
I never made it to the eastern side of the house. I kind of like stayed on this southwestern part of the house. I never went with the sheriffs all the way around.
Okay?
Just helped this side of the house there.
All right, let's take the direction that you think you were heading to get to the barn. We're going to look at the barn later, but set us off into a direction.
If I'm not mistaken, it was kind of like in this direction that we bushwhacked.
Okay, and you described what bushwhack was. You're not following the roads, you're crossing the terrain.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, while you're heading that way, show me those lines that you had that showed other officers checking out in another direction in the field.
Okay, and just to know, these are approximate.
We get that.
Yes. Okay. That's approximately the way I saw
Okay?
the officers branching out.
And you're not reflecting these lines as the number of officers, right?
That is correct.
Do you even know how many were searching?
Approximately, from what I can remember, approximately 7, I would like to say.
All right, so there were quite a bit
I
of
may be
officers.
mistaken, yes.
Okay, so why don't you, just in between each of the lines, with the same magenta color, whatever that is, just put some dots in between to reflect other people being there. Other officers. And were they a combination of Border Patrol and Sheriff's Department?
No, just Sheriff's Department. The only Border Patrol agents at that time was Agent Paul Duggan and myself.
Okay. So the two of you are gone to look for the homeowner.
Correct.
Okay. So, with a yellow, different color, yellow would be great. There is an arroyo out here, and you had to cross through it if you bushwhacked this direction, correct?
Yes,
Did you follow it, or did you just cut through it?
cut through it.
Okay, so why don't you just kind of, like as if it was a highlighter, give us an idea of where this arroyo encompasses this side of the house.
The arroyo should be a little bit south. If you want, south of, like at the end of that white line, that's where the arroyo should be.
So further down?
Further down, correct.
I didn't mean to do that, let me undo it. Which one's that? Okay. could just zoom out just to drop, or move the map up just to drop, please. State. Kim,
I'm sorry, what?
can you move it now up just to drop? No, you can't do that. Can you, if you zoom out, would it change your lines? Okay. Do you see an arroyo
Sorry.
in this photo right here?
Yes, I see the arroyo at the southern end of the white line.
Okay, so I know we came off our drawing, but if you could just take a yellow and try to show where that is.
I'm gonna put a circle around.
Well, try to follow it a little bit, and maybe a circle at the other end that you think it's, which direction it goes in.
That's the arroyo, and the arroyo runs kind of like this way.
Okay, and it continues up through the right side of the map, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And arroyo is a ditch, a ravine, correct?
Arroyo is the Mexican word for wash.
Okay. Commonly formed through waterways, right?
Correct.
And commonly maintaining different elevation than ground level
Yes.
because of erosion, correct?
Yes.
And most commonly, and specifically here, if this ditch or wash is lower than the ground level that the house is sitting on, correct?
It is.
Yes. And its deepness depends on where you are in the arroyo, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we got lower elevation running up, and you can see this. And then if we could now go to the next slide that you'll use, which I think was 115, please, Kim. Thank you.
And you can use these if you like to, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like me to clear the lines on my end?
Yes, please. Now, let's put a small circle around the house. And if you were to follow the yellow brick road, because it is kind of yellow, that is a pathway or a place where one could walk on, and ultimately it takes you to a building, correct?
That is correct.
And did you have a chance to observe this as Mr. Kelly's barn?
Yes, when we were up top, when we were in Mr. Kelly, you could overlook that.
Because you're at
The
a high,
warehouse.
I apologize.
Yes.
You are at a higher elevation where you greeted Mr. Kelly, correct?
That is correct.
But if you followed that road down with your eyes, you would see the barn and the pump house, correct?
Yes, the pump house is up top,
Yes.
and the barn or the steel warehouse should be down there.
Okay, if you
Under
could
the barn.
circle that, please. Both of them, yes, thank you.
That is the pump house,
Yes, sir.
and that is the steel building, the barn.
Okay. So the fact is, when you came together with Mr. Kelly, put a little X with a different color where you observe, approximately, where you observe Mr. Kelly with his two dogs. So real close to his pump house.
Real close to that pump house, correct.
And you don't know where he was coming from. Was he approaching you, though?
He was walking in the direction we came up, yes, on the road.
So far as you know, he could have been checking on his barn to make sure everything was safe.
Correct.
Okay. And did he reflect that?
No, he never stated he was checking on his farm.
Okay, but you didn't ask, correct?
No, I did not ask.
All right. And people you encounter are only as good as to the questions you might ask, correct, as far as gathering information?
Yes,
You've been trained to ask good questions, to try to learn facts.
correct.
And so if you don't ask him a question, he may not know to give you an answer, right?
Correct.
It's fair. Now, I mean, you are the trained one, and I would assume that victims, as Mr. Kelly was that day, are not necessarily victims every day to know what you might be looking for, right?
Right.
Now, just to give you some information, I know you were doing your best to reflect how he was holding this gun, and I get the cradling, but did you know Mr. Kelly is left-handed and that rifle might have been flip-flop from the direction that you said?
I have no idea.
Okay,
He's
but you
left-handed.
just saw the cradling,
Correct.
okay? And you don't know, and you know the barrel is pointing up in the sky,
Yes.
okay, whether it's this way to the left or this way to the right. I'm using my hands, and that's for the court reporter. The point was, he was holding it in a very safety-minded way, correct?
That is correct. Kind of like hunters do.
Right. And a good hunter doesn't point, or anyone that uses a gun will never just swing their barrels around and point it at people, correct?
Oh no, otherwise we would have had a problem.
Yes, you would have been threatened, felt threatened, and acted accordingly, correct?
Yes.
You did not feel threatened?
No.
Okay. So it was a very respectful carry on his own property, correct?
Yes.
Anything illegal about that?
No.
Okay. This property is outside the city limits, I would assume.
Yes.
Sheriffs responded,
Yes.
correct? All right. We do have a Nogales Police Department, correct?
We do have a Nogales Police Department.
Yeah, and they did not come to the scene at all, correct?
They weren't there when I was there.
Okay, so it's probably a jurisdiction thing, correct?
Correct.
And so sheriffs usually cover the county, the outside areas. Is that fair to say?
That is
Fair
fair
enough?
to say.
Okay. So he's walking up calmer now that everything seems safe, that he sees law enforcement. Is that possible?
That is possible.
Okay? Because I would feel safer if you were next to me. You look like you could protect me. Is that reasonable?
That is reasonable.
Okay. And there's two of you now. He now knows law enforcement is at his home, his homestead, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. In the border, this is the south direction. The house to the barn is in a southern direction.
More or less, yes, general southern direction.
Not perfect, right?
Not perfect.
And then to the right and to the right south, you could glance down yonder, so to speak, and see the border wall, correct?
Correct.
It would be off to the distance though, right?
Yes, correct.
A good ways away, but you could see it.
Correct.
Now, when you were going back to why people in this area potentially illegal immigrants that are crossing through his property or anyone else's property would likely to have guns, they're guarding. What are they guarding from? What are the different things?
They could be guarding, if they're carrying narcotics, they could be guarding the narcotics.
From Border Patrol?
No.
From whom?
From, we call them rip crews.
Okay.
Rip crews are people that steal the narcotics from other mules.
Okay, so this does exist.
It does exist.
Right. Now, would someone carrying illegal, and this is with your personal knowledge, sir, okay, and your training, would someone that's illegally carrying a narcotic, smuggling a narcotic, like, would they try to hide as they're crossing the border to get to a location?
Yes.
I mean, they're not going to say, here I am, right?
Of course not.
It's an illegal activity. You're being discreet.
Correct.
Why would someone like that have a walkie-talkie on them?
I imagine so they could coordinate, picking up other drugs or the routes they're taking.
Okay? So not only to find the person they're distributing to, potentially, but also could there be others watching out for any border patrol?
Yes.
And although you all have cameras as a group, correct?
Correct.
Surveillance cameras I'm referring to out
Correct.
there. They're not a perfect system, are they?
Nothing's a perfect system.
And it's hard to track people going through these auroras, right?
There are arroyos, it would be hard, yes.
Okay, because they're lower.
Correct.
And the cameras, I would imagine have you ever seen the camera system?
I've seen camera systems.
Okay, and do they have the ability to zoom around and look around?
I can't discuss operational.
Okay, that's fair. I'm not that interested in it. Were you at the scene when there was another call later on in the afternoon?
Was I
Yeah.
at
Did
Mr.
you-
Kelly's? No, I was not.
Okay, so this is the only incident that you went to.
That is correct.
Are you familiar with the word Duquesne Road?
Yes, I am.
And is it a common area for drug pickups?
We've had some drug pickups there in that area, yes.
Okay, why else do you know about that location?
I patrolled that area in the past.
Is Washington, the word Washington was used in this hearing, is it related to that area at all?
Yeah, Mount Washington is a big mountain east of Duquesne Road.
Okay, and if a person was in that area carrying backpacks and long arms and stuff like that, would that be suspicious to you?
Yes, it would.
You said there's a mountain there. Is that something that allows people, does that allow people to help look out the terrain around it?
Yes.
Okay. And so walkie-talkie communication could be done that way too, correct?
Correct.
And would it be common for anyone that might be doing this type of activity to have binoculars on?
I think that's fair to say.
Okay. And I'd like to show you we'll let her get it up a second here. I'll move on with another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Just how far, do you have any idea how far Duquesne Road or Mount Washington or that area would be to Mr. Kelly's house?
I want to say anywhere from 3 to 4 miles.
Okay. So with time, it's walkable. Someone could walk that distance.
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like me to clear the circles?
Just hold on. At this time, I'd like to republish what's already marked in evidence JJ, defense JJ. For all to see. And you can get rid of those lines now.
I'm sorry.
You're doing good. Okay, this is a photo that's already been admitted into evidence, and we're not asking you anything specific about the person. My questions are reflected upon the clothing, okay? And there is a walkie-talkie on the right hip there, a pair of binoculars and a fanny pack and camouflage coloring of clothing. Would this be, could this be run along the theory that this person could be someone that might be either a scout or trafficking drugs? Would this appearance surprise you?
Being honest and looking at the photo, to me it could be a scout, or to me it could be a hunter.
Okay. Now, of course you don't see a rifle, you don't see any guns in this photo, and you don't know when this took place, this photo. But the camouflage and if this person was on private property, would that be appropriate place to hunt?
It would not be an appropriate place to hunt.
Okay. And does a person like this that may be set out, I don't know, let's say out in the terrain, way far out there, would a person wearing these type of clothes blend into the terrain?
He could blend into the terrain, yes.
Okay. I mean, obviously if you're in front of someone, you're going to see it, right?
Correct.
But what if they were more than a half a mile out? Would it be harder to tell this person's there?
That is correct.
And that makes your job harder also, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Just a minute, Your Honor. What was the lady in the house's demeanor? Could you tell?
The lady was calm as well, not agitated. She appeared to be safe. She didn't look hurt or injured.
Did she seem concerned?
I would call it a little concern, yes, especially pointing a direction where her husband had taken off to.
And you got information somewhere in this case where you, and did this come from Mr. Kelly, that he heard a shot after he saw them?
Yes,
So, we knew there was gunfire, correct?
I never heard the gunfire, but that's what the call came as, and that's what Mr. Kelly stated.
Okay, so we knew, based on your information, there was a gunshot based on the facts.
Based on what they told me, I
Right.
assumed there had been,
I get it, you're not an eyewitness,
correct.
right? Okay, you're a responder, I get
Correct.
that.
Mhm.
But taking the facts that someone called in, there were shots, and confirmed by two different people, there's no reason to doubt it, was there?
No,
Okay. So we have one shot, because he said he heard a shot, right?
that is correct.
So a shot usually reflects singular, correct?
Single gunshot. Correct.
Not a few, not a lot, but heard, or shots, plural, but a shot, correct?
A shot, correct. A gunshot.
And were you aware there was one shot in the victim's body that was found later? Did you learn that?
I do not know anything about it.
I asked if you learned it.
I'm not aware. I haven't learned anything.
Okay, thank you. So when you said that he never said he discharged, did you ask him?
No, I didn't ask.
When you talked about was shot at versus didn't know where the shot was, it was close enough for them to be real, correct?
Correct. If they're
This-
stating that you heard it, yeah, it must have been close.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a shot off the distance. We don't call about that, right? We don't know if it's hunting or other things, right?
That is correct.
Could be a rancher that saw a rattlesnake 2 miles away and you hear that echo. That's not concerning, is it?
It could be, or it could be not. It depends.
Yes, not out in the ranches though, right? I mean, it's not like it's a residential suburbia area.
Again, like I can't. It'll be speculating to that, but yeah, could be good or it could be bad.
Houses are nowhere near, they're not butting up to this property or this home, is it?
No.
There's a lot of land all around here, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And are you aware that Mr. Kelly owns over 100 acres?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. But if you look around, it's hard to see, you can't even see houses really for that matter, can you?
Not really.
Okay. But whatever the shot was concerning, and seeing people running by with backpacks and rifles means it had to be visual. It had to be close enough to see it, right?
Correct.
Well, he can answer if he knows.
And he did. The answer was right, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If people were out in the terrain mile away wearing the type of clothing you just saw in the photo, that would be very difficult in this terrain to see, wouldn't it be?
Correct.
But if something's real close that you can get a feel that 5 to 7 people or whatever amount of people running by, that means these people had to be close enough to observe, correct?
Correct.
And depending where the homeowners were, that would be able to be considered on what distance from that location they were, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because you don't know if they were in the house or outside yet. You don't have that info.
I do not.
Okay. So, people that appear to be illegals from their attire, so running and shooting on their property, and trespassing are all crimes, correct?
Yes.
And doesn't that make Mr. Kelly and his wife potentially a victim?
Potentially, yes.
Council, I think it's a good time to take our mid-morning recess. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a 30-minute recess. It's 20 to 10. We'll be back in court. Please be in the jury room ready to go at 10 after 10. Morning recess.
Please rise, get the board.
in that witness's field of expertise and may also state reasons for those opinions. So, you hear expert witness, right? You're thinking some guy with a PhD in front of his name. It could be, but you don't need a PhD in front of your name to be an expert witness. If you have education or experience sufficient to be able to state an opinion with some expertise on an issue, then you can be an expert witness. You know, just by way of an example, there's actually cases reported with things like, you know, some 10-year-old kid being brought into court and testifying as a witness on butterflies in the area. Well, how is that possible? It's a 10-year-old kid. This kid had an amazing butterfly collection. You know, that's all he did. He was just obsessed with butterflies. He had a butterfly collection. There was an issue in the case about butterflies in the area for whatever reason. He was qualified as an expert. There was no greater expert about butterflies in this particular area than this kid. 10-year-old, no PhD, but not by education, maybe somewhat by education, but by experience, he was an expert. So going back to the instruction, it finishes as follows, and this is important also. But expert opinion testimony should be judged just as any other testimony. You are not bound by it. You may accept it or reject it in whole or in part, and you should give it as much credibility and weight as you think it deserves, considering the witness's qualifications and experience, the reasons given for the opinions, and all the other evidence in the case. All right? So that was one of your preliminary instructions. And again, you'll get a set of final instructions that will include an instruction about this as well. But I just thought I'd refresh your recollections about that now. This is no comment by me about this witness's testimony or any other witness's testimony that's given an opinion. I express no opinion about that. I just thought it was an appropriate time to remind you of that particular instruction. Thank you. All right. Ms. Lothar, I think you were continuing with your cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge. Let's go back to a couple points that were discussed and get a little more clarity. The first one, you talked about his demeanor about being calm at the time you met up with Mr. Kelly, correct?
Correct.
So, knowing the incident, the call, and the fact that he mentioned shots were fired, it seems that as a judge of you're a police officer, have to observe things, correct?
I'm a border patrol agent, correct. I have to observe things.
And I didn't mean to insult you. But law enforcement. In law enforcement, you are a law enforcement officer, right?
Correct.
You have a specialty area of the field. But as a law enforcement officer, it's important to observe people, body language, other things that's going around you, correct?
Correct.
So going back to the compound question, and I apologize for that, knowing the things you learned on the call, the follow-up that you got from Ms. Kelly and Mr. Kelly, or whoever the white-haired lady was, the fact that he appeared calm now takes some urgency that the threat might have subsided to some degree?
Correct.
Okay. That would be your interpretation, right?
Correct.
The fact that the gun was lowered, not raised up in any kind of assaultive handling of the rifle, also shows his relaxed state of mind.
Correct.
And, I mean, he wasn't being nervous.
Can I correct myself about the state of mind? I wouldn't know anything about the state of mind, but his demeanor seemed to appear relaxed to me.
Okay. And we could use the word demeanor. His demeanor did not seem nervous at this time.
It did not.
Like if he shot someone and was scared about it, you would expect someone to be nervous, right?
In my opinion, I would expect somebody to be nervous, shaken up, visibly upset.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned those officers, a good handful of officers. I don't think you counted them, but you reflected it as being how many? Around 7, 8?
Approximately 7.
Okay. And we won't hold you exactly because I don't think you were necessarily responsible for that area of the search, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, but you observed quite a few, a good handful or more, of law enforcement, which you believe were sheriffs, correct?
Correct.
Combing out a area or a field that we saw you draw lines out, correct?
Correct.
And they were spread out like a search should be conducted, right?
Correct.
And you learned how to do those kind of searches, right?
Correct.
And so you spread out so many feet apart, that way, and you proceed forward, so that way you could all cover as much area, but be as thorough as possible, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever learn later that that area that the search you observed was the same area that a body was found?
I learned that a body was found. I do not know the exact location, how he was found, or whom found it.
So you never heard it was the same area that law enforcement combed over? You never heard that?
Well, it was a general area, but yeah, that's what I heard,
Okay.
general area.
I know that even though you didn't respond later, a lot of times there's a lot of communications because you were involved in this case. You had a part of this case, correct?
Correct.
Now, there was mention of running these subjects, running by or with backpacks and long arms, right?
Correct.
So, I know you don't know exactly where everyone is when they observed it, and I heard that. But if these subjects were running, something was causing them to run, most likely, correct?
Most likely, yes.
I mean, unless you just like to run with all that heavy equipment, guns, things that might have been on the person, running away from something is not uncommon, correct?
Can you rephrase that question again, please?
It's very well likely that this group that was running could have been running away from something.
That is correct.
I will pass the witness.
Redirect examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. So let's start back to the area that y'all searched. Now, you talked about originally doing just a little perimeter search, is that right?
That is correct.
And then after that perimeter search, all split up, correct?
Correct. We all fanned out in different directions.
And you all headed south, is that right?
Correct.
And when you headed south, were you observing where the sheriff's department officers went?
Not precisely. I had a general idea. They were to my east for situational awareness purposes and safety, but not exactly where they were.
So you know they headed east, but you don't know specifically where.
I do not.
So if we wanted to know where the sheriff's department officers searched, we'd have to ask them. Is that fair?
That is fair.
Now I want to break it down a little bit on the timing, because I think you corrected me that you got dispatched at 2:40. Is that right?
That is correct. That's when the call came through.
And I thought that's the time that you arrived, but that's the time you were actually dispatched.
Correct.
So if this call actually initially came in at 2:30, it would have been 10 minutes later before y'all were dispatched.
Correct.
And then you said it took you 15 minutes to get there.
Approximately.
Object to leaving.
It's foundational overrule.
And so that would put you there about 2:55?
Correct.
And then you waited there for the other officers to get there. How long do you think you waited?
After I went to the front of the house, came back, 7 to 10 minutes, possibly.
So we're talking a little bit after 3, is that right?
Yes.
So a little after 3, then you all get there and you do that initial perimeter search. How long do you think that initial perimeter search took you?
Approximately 10 minutes.
So now we're talking about 3:10, is that fair?
That's fair.
And then when you finished that initial perimeter search, you all headed south.
Correct.
And how far do you think you hiked south of the house?
I would like to say about a quarter of a mile.
How long
Yes.
do you think that took you?
About 10, 15 minutes, possibly.
So now we're talking 3:20, 3:25, is that right?
That is correct.
So that would have been almost an hour after the original call that you finally found Mr. Kelly.
Correct.
Now, you said you thought there were 7 sheriff's department officers. Do you know that for certain, or is that a guess on your part?
That is a guess on my part. That's approximately.
So if the officers say there were a different number of them, would you dispute that?
I would not.
So the defense is asking you to speculate about what the defendant may or may not have done an hour before you made contact with him. Is that what your understanding was of their question? About what was causing his demeanor at that time?
Correct.
And it's been an hour. Is there any way that you can know what caused Mr. Kelly to be calm at the time that you observed him?
Of course not, no.
The defense also asked you to speculate whether Mr. Kelly's response to this incident would have been reasonable or not. Is that what your understanding is of what they asked you?
Yes.
What that is based on is entirely on what Mr. and Mrs. Kelly said to you, though. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So you wouldn't know whether this is reasonable or not unless you actually observed what happened, correct?
Well, correct.
Now, the judge has asked you to, allowed you to testify to some issues on expert testimony. And so I want to ask you a few things about your specific expertise.
Correct.
Now, in the years leading up to this arrest, and to this incident in January of 2023, can you tell me how long it had been since you had a narcotics arrest in the Keno Springs area?
Narcotics arrest, at least approximately 2 years before the incident was probably the last time I had a narcotics seizure in that area.
And the defense, what are the majority of the arrests in that area?
In those 2 years prior to the incident, mostly just regular groups of illegal migrants.
When you arrest migrants, do they have weapons generally?
Generally, they do not.
Can you tell me the last time you saw an AK-47 prior to January 30th of 2023 in the Keno Springs area?
Personally, I haven't seen an AK-47 in that area.
Ever?
Ever, not me.
Are you familiar with any rip crews in the Keno Springs area?
No.
What's the last rip crew that you're familiar with in Santa Cruz County?
The time Agent Terry was shot and killed,
And when was that?
approximately 2010.
So it's been 13 years before the crime, or before this crime, that you are aware of a rip crew in Santa Cruz County.
Personally, you weren't correct.
Now, the defense asked you about the arroyos and some of the roads that lead down to the border wall. So if we could go back to that. And I want to go back to Exhibit 114. Actually, I think it's Exhibit 115. I corrected the numbers on the slides, so. Exhibit 115. Your Honor, could we publish that?
Submit it,
Yes.
yes.
Yep. Okay. Everybody can see that? So let's talk a little bit about the arroyos that run through the Kelly property. Defense asked you a bit about them. I think you highlighted those with yellow before, is that right?
That is correct.
Those arroyos or washes, do they go first to the east to the National Forest?
It depends, but yeah, they branch out from the National Forest coming down, I believe.
So they go from this road here, I'm trying to figure out, from the road, the Kelly's driveway. It branches sort of east and north, a little bit to the north, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And the one that goes east and north, does it go off the Kelly property
It does.
and onto the National Forest?
It does.
And is there a Border Patrol road along where this wash comes out in the National Forest?
It could be, I would need to look at the map, but it could be, yeah, leading up to where the fence is, or
Is there a Border Patrol road that goes
there is a Border Patrol road.
along the east of the Kelly property, south to the border?
Yes,
And then you can see that the wash also goes sort of southwesterly, is that right?
that is correct.
And are there also Border Patrol roads that go towards the border in that direction?
Well, I wouldn't say they're called Border Patrol roads, they're forest, National Forest roads, but yeah, there should be some roads intersecting those washes.
They're actually Forest Service roads, right?
Forest Service roads, correct?
Okay, I meant to say that you all use them though, correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
And so that wash actually empties onto another road as well, correct?
Yes,
And that road does that road sort of cut along the bottom of the border wall?
yes.
Now, defense asked you a little bit about the bundles that Mr. Kelly talked about with you. Could you describe for the jury what those bundles that he was describing to you looked like?
Usually meals, as I stated earlier, the people carrying bundles of narcotics on their backs. Usually big square bundles, half of a size of my torso or bigger. Usually wrapped in burlap, and they're heavy.
And did Mr. Kelly describe the bundle to you, or did he just say bundles?
He just said bundles.
Can you tell the jury, have you also seen like a woodland camo backpack?
Yes, usually migrants, regular migrants, use backpacks, kind of like school backpacks, the size of school backpacks. But they're imprinted with that woodland camel, kind of like the ones that hunters use with the leaf imprints. Green in color, brown in color, yes.
And when you see those woodland camo backpacks, do you generally see those with migrants or with narcotics?
With migrants.
Fanny packs. Do you see fanny packs sometimes?
I have seen fanny packs, correct.
Who do you generally see the fanny packs on?
Me personally, I see them usually on females. I have seen them on males, but the majority of the time females will use the fanny packs.
And when you see them on males, what's the situation generally?
It depends,
Could be anything.
could be anything.
Could be migrants, could be narcotics, could be anything.
Could be scouts, could be anything, yes, correct.
Radios. Who do you generally see radios on?
Radios, we see them on scouts, people that are leading the groups, but we have seen them on on aliens as well, so it depends.
So sometimes you actually see them on an alien, not just a scout.
Correct.
And when you see them on folks you term scouts, that could be for migrants or for narcotics.
That is correct. Could be for both.
And is that also true for binoculars?
Correct.
But you also see those binoculars on other folks as well.
Correct.
You see them on bird watchers?
Bird watchers, hunters.
The photo that the defense showed you, do you have any idea what that photograph depicts?
The photo of the person that was perched up on a, like I stated, it could be a scout, it could be a hunter. I wouldn't be able to really tell what he was.
You couldn't see a weapon in that, correct?
No.
And you have no idea when that photo was taken or who it is of?
I have no clue.
So I want to make sure I understand exactly how far away the Washington camp area is from this location. You said you think it's 3 to 4 miles away, is that right?
Approximately, that's my thought, yes.
And you talked about how that might be a potential load-up area for narcotics. Is it also a load-up area for migrants?
Yes.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about the location of the Kelly property. Now, the Kelly's house is actually to the far north of their acreage, correct?
What's the other landmark? I'm sorry.
Of that parcel, that 170-acre parcel, they're right at the edge of where their fence line is, right? You talked about where their gate is.
Yes.
I'm going to object, Your Honor. He testified before he wasn't that familiar with this area, and so I don't believe he has personal knowledge of it.
Well, objection sustained as to, the first question you asked was it close to the border of the Kelly's property? There's no foundation that knows what the outlines of their property are. But then you re-asked the question about whether they're not, how close they are to the fence line. So just re-ask the question,
Sure.
something for which there may be foundation.
You know where the Kelly's fence line is, correct?
The front gate, yes. I don't know the whole property, yes.
But the fence line and the front gate.
The
you know
front
where
gate, I know where it is.
And that's pretty close to the Kelly residence, correct?
That is correct.
Because you hopped that wall and we saw that on the map, correct?
I hopped that fence, correct.
Okay. And what's just to the north of the Kelly property?
It's just open fields and a road.
And just to the north of that?
Should be Keno Springs, the road.
And is that a residential neighborhood?
That is a residential neighborhood.
And
Correct.
are there a number of houses in the Keno Springs residential neighborhood?
Yes, quite a number of houses.
And it's not, is it that far north of the Kelly property? The road's about a mile, but how far north of are the residences?
About a mile
And-
from the property, yes.
Okay. Do you know what a Normandy barrier is?
I do.
Could you describe that for the jury?
At the end of our area of operations, or the end, let me rephrase it, at the end of the fence, the bollard fence, where it ends, where it stops, there's these sort of barriers put in place. They're steel barriers made out of steel sections of rail that resemble the Normandy barriers used in France during World War II that were put in place on the beaches by the Germans. That's why they're called Normandy barriers. So once the fence ends, we have this section of Normandy barriers to prevent vehicles from driving into the United States with, illegal narcotics or weapons.
So is that just basically big crisscrosses of metal?
That is correct.
And is that, you said it's past where the border wall ends, is that to the east of the border wall?
That's to the east of the border wall, correct?
So would that be in the area where the National Forest is?
Yes,
And that's east of Keno Springs?
yes.
I think that's all I have. Thank you, Agent.
Thank you.
Any question or any questions for this witness from the jurors? I see none. Very well, sir. Thank you. You may step down.
You're on. Thank you.
State calls next week.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Deputy Monreal. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, Your Honor. The state calls Gary Wisdom.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, sir. If you would please come over here. Have a seat. All right. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Wisdom. Can you please state your name for the record?
Gary Wisdom.
And I think the common spelling, but can you spell your name for the court?
So, I've got some different speakers up here, so it's very difficult for me to know whether or not you're hearing it or not. So if you have a problem, you've got to let me know. Otherwise, you know.
Sorry. No problem. Mr. Wisdom, can you just spell your last name for the court?
Wisdom.
Good morning, Mr. Wisdom. Can you just also then briefly introduce yourself to the jury?
My name's Gary Wisdom.
And how long are you a resident of Santa Cruz County?
Yes.
What part of Santa Cruz County? Don't give me the address, but what part of Santa Cruz County do you live?
East side.
East side?
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with Mr. Kelly's residence?
Yes.
Where are you in proximity to Mr. Kelly's residence?
I live on North River Road.
For us, where is that in direction to Mr.
That's
Kelly's?
south of the Little Red Schoolhouse.
Well, I don't think anyone here knows where the Red Schoolhouse is, so are you to the west, to the east, or north of Mr. Kelly?
To the north.
To the north. In Keno Springs?
No, North River Road.
Okay. Close by. How, as a crow flies, how far are you away from Mr. Kelly's residence?
Oh, probably about 6 miles.
6 miles. And how long have you lived here in Santa Cruz County?
I was born and raised here.
Born and raised in Santa Cruz. And what did you do for a living?
I worked with a utility company for a few years. And then I went to work for the golf course in Keno Springs.
And then, are you still working for the golf course?
No,
And
I
are you-
do, sometimes I do things for them, but not very often.
And what do you do now to keep your days busy?
Take care of my cattle,
And how many head of cattle do you have?
about 36 head,
36? Calving season about to start?
yes.
Have you always had 36?
No, I had more than that at one time. I got rid of some, because we didn't have any rains last summer.
Rain dictates how many cattle you keep on hand, right?
Yes,
And that's for the vegetation in the area?
Right,
Are you free range? You allow your cows to go wherever?
free range.
And do you ask other neighbors to allow your cows to graze on their property?
No,
No.
I lease from Keno Springs.
You lease from Keno Springs, okay. And obviously you know Mr. Kelly?
Yes,
How long have you known Mr. Kelly?
20+ years,
A long time.
quite a while.
When I say no, are you acquaintances or are you friends?
Well, we've been friends.
Like friends, like you see him every week, talk
No,
to each other?
no. No, I've known him for about 20+ years.
Okay, and I'm just gonna jump forward to, were you in Santa Cruz County around January 30th of last year?
Yes,
I don't wanna talk about what you may have heard, but you're aware of what happened on January 30th, right?
yes,
You know what happened, or allegedly happened, right?
right.
Did you speak to anyone? Did you speak to anyone, either Mr. Kelly or Mrs. Kelly, after January 30th?
Yes,
Who did you speak with?
Mrs. Kelly.
And did Ms. Kelly indicate to you anything about January 30th?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustain.
I'm asking if she...
Yes or no, so yes or no, you can answer yes or
Could you repeat that question?
Did Ms. Kelly indicate to you anything about the event of January 30th? Just, that's a yes or no, Mr. Wisdom.
Yes,
Did you have conversations with Mr. Kelly?
yes.
Your Honor, I'm asked to go on to the...
going to take a little longer than I expected. I'm going to excuse the jury. I'll stay here in the courtroom with the lawyers, and we'll work on this issue. I'll have the bailiff take you out. Please stick around. Don't go too far away. Shouldn't take too long.
Rise before.
See. All right. In our sidebar conversation, I'm not getting a very specific statement about what this witness would say, what's anticipated he would say. So let's do a little trial run on that. Let's see where it goes.
Sure.
So we're going to ask some questions. This is like a trial run. We're going to, but again, there's no right or wrong answers. It's just honest answers, right? So just give an honest answer. We're just going to do a little trial run so I can hear what the nature of this testimony is. All right, go ahead.
And just know, I reviewed the transcript, so I will correct myself a little bit. Mr. Wisdom, did you have a conversation with Mr. Kelly about prior instances of people on his property?
Yes.
And do you remember how long ago that was?
It's been 2 years.
2 years ago? And I think your transcript indicates 2 to 3 years ago. Would that be about right?
Yes.
And that conversation was about what?
He had called me up and told me that there was a group of heading back into Mexico. And he had fired a shot up in the air. And told me I should probably go check my fences and make sure they didn't get cut.
And did you tell me anything about being careful about that?
Yes, I did.
Tell the court what you mean by be careful about that.
For shooting, up in the air. Could be dangerous for him.
And did he ever indicate to you that he patrolled his area with an AK-47? He never told you that?
No.
We'll withdraw that kind of question, Your Honor. That won't be asked. But the first part clearly is 404B. We motioned this in a pretrial motion. This is clearly indicative of a pattern by the defendant here. This eerily relates to this incident, shooting at people heading south on his property. Shooting in the air, shooting his weapon in the air, similar to what's going on here.
And Judge, I think we already pretty extensively briefed the issue, so we're just sticking with our objection.
We'll say it again here in open court.
It's very long ago in time that this is alleged to have taken place. It's not clear, we can tell from the witness that he had a conversation with Mr. Kelly about this. It's not clear when the incident actually took place that Mr. Kelly is allegedly talking about. And it's not clear again how many shots, it's not clear if people were armed or not armed. And this witness just doesn't know. There's insufficient information for that to be probative. And we think the prejudicial effect outweighs the probative value of that evidence, and that it could be used as propensity, which is not permissible. So for those reasons, we object.
So, thank you. It's unclear to the court what the foundation is, or if there's foundation as to not when the telephone call occurred, or the conversation occurred, but when the subject alleged incident occurred. That's important to the court's analysis under 404B.
Well, let me ask, Mr. Wisdom, did Mr. Kelly give you any indication of when this happened in time?
I don't know if it happened that day.
Was it close in proximate time to when he called you?
Yes.
So it was close in time to the phone call?
Right.
And I don't think there's foundation for that. I mean, the witness is being agreeable, but how does
That's
he?
one of our good witnesses.
Sure. You're saying that you and Mr. Kelly had a conversation, and that was what, you said that conversation took place 2 or 3 years ago, is that what you said?
Yes.
And in the conversation, Mr. Kelly told you something about firing a weapon into the air, right?
Right.
Did he tell you when he fired that weapon into the air?
No.
Did he give you any information about when that took place at all?
No. I think it was that day he called me.
What, you think it was that day? Did
Right.
Mr. Kelly tell you it was that day?
I figured it was that day because he told me to go check my fences to make sure they didn't get cut.
So that's the only reason you had to believe that that took place on that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a minute, Your Honor.
I think we got the information.
Anything else? And clearly, Your Honor, he's indicating the time, proximity, when he received the phone call. Mr. Kelly tells him to go check his fence line, so that gives you also an inference that happened on that day, hence the phone call to Mr. Wisdom.
This issue is governed by Rule 404B of the Arizona Rules of Evidence, which provides in subsection 1, except as otherwise provided in Rule 404C, evidence of other crimes, wrongs, or acts is not admissible to prove the character of a person in order to show action in conformity therewith. Subsection 2, permitted uses. This evidence, however, may be admissible for other purposes such as proof of motive, opportunity, intent, preparation, plan, knowledge, identity, or absence of mistake or accident. The court is mindful that we've had hearings on these conversations and related conversations, some of which are memorialized in text messages, and I've ruled on the text messages. I've ruled that some of those text messages are admissible, but I did it on the basis primarily that it showed preparation by the defendant for what is alleged to have occurred in this case. And all those text messages that the court allowed to be, or will allow to be introduced with proper foundation were very proximate in time to the alleged event in this case, within days or within, I think, 30 days or so, probably less. And the court would admit those text messages on the basis that it would tend to show and be probative of the defendant's preparation for the events that occurred, but also mindful, of course, of Rule 403. These incidents are alleged to have occurred about 2 or 3 years prior to this alleged incident, so the basis upon which the court admitted those other text messages is not present here. It can't show preparation for this. It doesn't tend to strongly show preparation for what's alleged to have occurred here because it happened 2 or 3 years prior. It's prejudicial in that it really, what it tends to show, and what the court infers it is being offered to show, is that this defendant has a propensity for violence and willing to use violence on his property, even if his sister weren't. Also under Rule 403, the court excludes this evidence, finding that its probative value, which is minimal given the lack of proximity in time to the events that occurred. The court may exclude relevant evidence that its probative value is substantially outweighed by the danger of one or more of the following: unfair prejudice, confusing the issues, misleading the jury, undue delay, wasting time, and needlessly presenting cumulative evidence. I think this evidence would tend to be used by the jury to show, if they would use it for such, but they would use it to try to infer that Mr. Kelly has a certain propensity for being willing to use violence in these situations, and that's an improper use. I appreciate very much, Mr. Jenney, bringing this to the court's attention out of the presence of the jury, but for that reason, the objection is sustained. If we bring back to the jury.
Rise before.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please have a seat. We resolved the issue. We're ready to go forward. Mr. Jetty, whenever you're ready to continue.
Mr. Wisdom, I think I forgot to ask you, how big is your property?
Oh, it's probably about maybe 2,000 acres.
2,000, do you have, it's a big piece of property, do you have any hands, any help?
I have friends that help me out.
Okay, and that's for your 36 cows, great, 36 head graze is on your 2,000 acres?
Yes.
Let me ask you, do you patrol your area? Do you walk your 2,000 acres?
No.
ATV, horseback?
I used to ride on horseback.
Do you go out on your property though, often?
Yes.
And do you carry any weapons when you go out?
No.
You don't carry any guns?
Yes, sir.
Are you afraid?
I just don't take them with me.
And this is always a personal question, Mr. Wisdom, but can I just ask you how old you are?
73.
73. And in your time, have you always owned that 2,000 acres? I mean,
I don't own it, I lease it.
lease it. And how long have you been in that area leasing 2,000 acres?
19 years.
19 years. And do you see a lot of people coming on your property?
No, not usually.
I'm talking about migrants from Mexico.
No. I used to see them quite often, but not so much anymore.
When did that stop? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. And when they came on your property, were you afraid?
I just go the other way.
Go the other way? Do you call in, you report it?
Pardon?
Do you report it, seeing people on your property?
I have.
And you report that to which agency?
Border Patrol.
Border Patrol. Have you ever used a weapon to scare anyone off your property?
No.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Why would I?
Why wouldn't you?
Objection, relevance.
That's all the questions I have, right?
Cross-examination.
You lease property that is, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. The property that you lease, is that at least some of it adjacent to Mr. Kelly's property?
Yes.
And you've known Mr. Kelly, and you've known him for a long time, right?
Yes.
And you've known his wife Wanda for a long time also, right?
Yes.
Okay. And does Mr. Kelly sometimes contact you to let you know that fences have been cut?
No, not usually. No.
Does he sometimes let you know that fences have been cut?
No.
He doesn't let you know about fences being cut?
No.
Okay. Have your fences ever been cut?
Oh, yes.
How frequently? Is that something that happens pretty often out there?
It used to happen more than it does now.
Okay. And when your fences do get cut, that can cause problems because your cattle can get out, right?
Right.
And then you have to go out and make repairs to your fences, correct? And so is it pretty standard for you to check on your fences pretty regularly?
Usually if I see some cows that are out, that are up there in the village in Keno Springs, then I go check to see where they came to.
Okay. And it wouldn't be unusual for somebody, maybe who has a smaller piece of property, to go check on fences pretty regularly, right?
Yes.
To make sure that they haven't been cut, right?
Right.
And I think we want to just make it clear, you don't live on this property that you're leasing, is that
No.
correct?
No.
So Mr. Kelly lives out there, right?
Yes.
You lease property that's adjacent to Mr. Kelly, right?
Yes.
And you live somewhere else, right?
Right.
Do you live near Keno Springs or more near Rio Rico?
Keno Springs,
Keno Springs, but near the Little Red Schoolhouse?
right.
Okay. Have you ever seen people on your property, illegal aliens on your property? That's something you've seen, correct?
Yes,
And I'm assuming most of the people you see probably don't have weapons, correct?
I've seen them with weapons.
Most of them probably don't, right?
Yeah,
You have seen people with weapons, correct?
yes,
How often have you seen people with weapons on your property?
several times.
Several times. How big of a group did you see on your property on those several times when you saw people with weapons?
How big of a what?
Of a group, how many people did you see?
Oh, it could be 3 to 10 to 12 people.
You've seen groups from 3 to 10 to 12 people on your property?
Yes.
And those groups that you've observed, you've seen some of those people to be carrying weapons?
Yes, I've seen weapons.
What kind of weapons did you see, if you
I
can
don't know
tell?
what they were.
Were they rifles or handguns?
Rifles,
Rifles? And you've seen that on at least 3 different occasions?
yes.
Okay. Did you observe anything else about these groups who were carrying rifles on your property?
No,
Were they carrying anything else?
they had backpacks on.
Were they large backpacks?
Yes.
Okay. And were these men in these groups that you observed?
Pardon me?
Men you saw in the groups?
Men?
Were they men?
Yes.
Okay.
I figured they were probably carrying drugs.
And why did you figure they were probably carrying drugs?
'Cause they wouldn't have no other reason to be going through there,
Right.
carrying backpacks.
Were they wearing camouflage? Do you recall?
I've seen them camouflaged, but most of the time dressed in black.
You normally see groups dressed in black when you see people carrying rifles. Could you tell, and if you can't tell, let us know, but were you able to tell how many members in the group had rifles? Was it all of them, some of them, or something different?
I don't think all of them are carrying rifles.
You don't think all of them carried rifles?
Like I said, if I saw them like that, I'd turn around and I'd go a different direction.
Makes sense. Those groups, when you did have those several encounters that you're talking about, were you out by yourself on that property?
Yes,
In a vehicle or on foot or on horseback?
vehicle
Vehicle?
and on horseback.
So on different occasions, you've been out there either in a vehicle or on horseback, and you've seen groups of armed men?
That's what he said before, so he didn't repeat it. Just ask
Sorry.
another question.
When you say they're wearing black, were all members of the group wearing black to your recollection?
That I can remember, yes.
Okay. Did you report these instances to Border Patrol?
Yes,
Those 3 instances you reported to Border Patrol?
right.
Do you recall how quickly Border Patrol was able to respond?
Fairly quickly,
How quick is fairly quickly?
within 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, so 10 to 20 minutes. Were they able to apprehend any of these people as far as you are aware?
I'm not aware if they apprehended him or not.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Be direct.
Mr. Wisdom, you talked about backpacks, you saw backpacks. How far back in time was that? How long ago?
It's been a couple of years.
A little while ago, right?
Yeah,
When we're talking about backpacks, are we talking about the ones that kids wear to school, or are we talking about a different size backpack?
bigger backpacks.
Can you describe what a backpack that looks like?
I'd say it's probably about 3 feet long and maybe a couple of feet wide.
Pretty substantial.
Yeah.
And you said the people you saw with those kind of backpacks, and some of them had weapons, I think that was your testimony, they were all wearing black.
Yes.
I didn't ask you this, but Do you see Mr. Kelly in the courtroom today?
Yes,
Where is he sitting?
over there behind you.
Behind me, right behind me? Is he sitting at defense counsel table?
Yes.
Your Honor, can the record reflect the witnesses identified Mr. Kelly?
So ordered.
That's all the questions I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness from any of yours? Seeing none, will this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo, you're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
State and cause the next witness.
State calls Deputy Monreal.
Or sir, step up.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Thank you, Your Honor. And could I have them, sir? Good morning. Could you please tell the jury your full name and spell your last name for the court reporter?
Good morning. My first name is David. Last name is Monreal, Monreal. Additional Fabian, Fabian.
And are you a deputy with the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Department?
Yes, I'm a deputy with the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office. My badge number is 191.
And Deputy Monreal, how long have you been with the Sheriff's Department?
I've been employed with the Sheriff's Office for over 6 years.
And could you tell us, have you spent your whole career at the Sheriff's Department?
My whole career has been with the Sheriff's Department. It's been 5 years, consisted of a detention center. I did 5 years, and the year and a half approximately has been with the deputy side.
So you were a detention officer in our jail here for 5 years, and then for a year and a half you've been a deputy.
Yes, correct.
Could you just tell the jury a little bit about your training and experience?
My training experience, when I started at detention, it was back in 2017, June 24th. Went to the academy, which is Coda Academy, Tucson, graduated from the academy. I then spent those 5 years at the detention center where I was going to trainings, various trainings on how to deal with inmates, interact with people. Then was also a supervisor in the year of 2019. I became a corporal supervisor where I would have more training. I was sent to trainings where how to communicate with staff. Then after that I became an interim sergeant for the year of 2021. After that I went to the academy for the deputy patrol side. I went to the academy in 2022. I went to the academy of June 25th. July 25th of 2022 I went to the academy in Cochise County where I graduated December 8th of 2022. Where various trainings from defensive tactics, interacting with people, domestic violence, how to interact, how to talk. And from there, the training, when I graduated, I was placed in a 3-month training here with the Sheriff's Office with different trainers where it became 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 weeks, and then 2 weeks as well. I was trained by 3 different officers during the course when this incident happened.
Was your training complete, or were you still on training at the time of this incident?
I was still in training. It was my phase 3. It was phase 3 approximate. I was in the streets 7 to 8 weeks. I was still in training. My 7 to 8.
And so on January 30th of 2023, who was your field training officer?
My field training officer was Deputy Arlette Cabrera, batch number 139.
And when you're on your field training, does that deputy, that field training officer, do they shadow you the whole time?
The whole time, she's always next to me. I cannot leave her side. If there's a call I'm responding to, she's next to me. I cannot leave her side. She's always there to me.
And were you riding together in a vehicle?
Yes, we're riding together.
Now, on January 30th of 2023, did you and your field training officer get dispatched to a call?
Yes, we did.
And was that at 100 Willow Cross Circle?
Yes, correct.
Do you know what time you were dispatched to that call?
Call came out approximately 14:47 hours.
And what time is that in non-military regular people time?
2:47 p.m.
So you got dispatched at 2:47. Do you know where y'all were when you got dispatched?
We're here at the Sheriff's Office, 2170 North Congress Drive.
And when the call was dispatched, there are calls that you go to that you turn on your lights and sirens, and then there are calls that you don't turn on your lights and sirens. Can you tell us what the difference is?
Correct, excuse me. The difference is our dispatch could dispatch to any call, such as we need assistance here, keep the peace. It could be any call that is thrown over the radio, and we'll just respond normal traffic, driving normally. But when there is an emergency alert tone, it's an approximate 2 to 3 second sound, which is kind of, you can't forget that sound, a little beep in the radio, and it makes me just, remain silent, listen to the radio, pay attention what they're going to tell you and what's going on. Once we hear that and we know where we're going, we activate our lights and sirens. And that's usually when we also drive over the speed limit, and just pay attention to traffic and what's going on and go to that emergency.
So was this a toned out call or was this a regular call?
It was a tone-out call.
And so when you got the call, I'm assuming you turned on your lights and sirens and sped to the location, is that right?
That's correct. That's right.
All right. Were you driving or was Deputy Cabrera?
I was driving.
And when you got toned out to the call, how long do you think it took you to get out there to Keno Springs?
Do not recall, but approximately at least 20, 30 minutes from
Okay.
here from the sheriff's office.
When you got there, what did you observe?
When I arrived there, what I observed first was 2 Border Patrol agents standing at the gate.
Were you and Deputy Cabrera the first Sheriff's Department officers to respond?
Yes, correct. Also, as well, was Sergeant Yulia Garcia, batch number 130, and as well, Deputy Cristobal Castaneda, batch number 144.
Did they arrive at a similar time to you, or, were you together? How did that work out, if you remember?
They were right behind us.
Were there any other deputies other than the 4 of you?
No.
When the 4 of you arrived and you saw the Border Patrol agents, where were the Border Patrol agents stationed when you got there?
When I got there, they were right at the gate of the entrance of the residence.
Were they on the inside or outside?
They were outside the residence gate.
So not on the property, just outside the property?
That's correct, outside the property.
Once you arrived and you saw them there, what did y'all do?
Once we arrived, first of all, we came out of our units with our long rifles. All of our deputies had our AR rifles, which is issued by the county.
Why'd you have your rifles?
We had our rifles due to the fact the call came out that there were shots fired in the area. We were not knowing what was really going on other than shots fired in the area.
So anytime there's a shots fired call, that's how you're going to respond with your rifles?
Yes, right.
Do you take those kind of calls seriously?
Yes.
Do you get those calls a lot?
No.
You don't get shots fired calls very often?
It's not very often since I've been out here.
Okay. And when you got out of the vehicle with your rifles, what'd you do with the Border Patrol agents?
I approached the Border Patrol agents and they briefed me on a little bit of what was going on, what they knew about.
And after you had that briefing, what'd y'all do?
After we had that briefing, that's when we decided to start to search the area.
And you say search the area, what were you looking for?
We're looking at the point, at that time, we're looking for any threats, and as well for Mr. Kelly, due to the fact that Border Patrol agents had told us he had left, searching for himself.
So there's something called a security sweep, and then there's an actual search. Would you describe this as a security sweep or a search at this point?
It was a search, basically,
A search, what are you looking for?
just looking for any subjects that have weapons, because at the time, Border Patrol had told us there were armed subjects.
So isn't that what a security sweep is? Aren't you looking for
I
a
object to
danger?
Stay.
And we were looking,
Let me ask it again.
There's objections to staying, so
Sure.
she's gonna ask you.
I'll ask it in a different way. A security sweep, what does a security sweep entail?
well, security sweep tells, basically look as much as we can, see where we're trying to look. We're not looking under every rock, basically, or moving every pebble we could find on the floor.
Okay, but what are you looking for?
We're looking for any threat, any immediate threat, since there were shots fired, we're looking for someone.
So what you referred to as a search, were you looking under every rock when you were doing this, what you referred to as a search?
We're looking as much where someone could hide or be or place themselves as a human being could hide behind or move around.
And were you looking for them for a reason?
We're looking for the reason of just shots fired and as the reason of they were possibly armed.
Okay. Did you describe this in your report in some way?
The search,
Yes.
I don't recall if I described it. I do believe I put a cursory search of the area.
Cursory search? Is that how you would describe it, as a cursory search?
Yes.
Can you tell me, I'm going to show you what's been admitted. Should I get the number right? As Exhibit 114. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
This has already been admitted. Can we publish, Your Honor? Not coming up. Oh, it's over there, but just not up here? Okay, oh, good, all right. Sorry, I was waiting for that to come up on the TV screen over here, so pardon me. So, can I go on? Thank you. So, can you tell us what we're looking at in State's Exhibit 114?
This we're looking at a basically Google map picture from the residence.
And when you say the residence, is that the Kelly residence?
Yes, correct.
And I'm gonna zoom it in just a little bit. Do you see on this map the area where you came in through the gate?
Yes, correct.
And can you show us, if you touch on the screen in the upper left-hand corner with that stylus that's in front of you, if you touch the upper right-hand corner, it'll give you a color. And then if you circle the area where the gates are located. Just to the north of that area on the map, do you see a different, something in that area?
Yes.
Is it possible that the gates are a little bit further north?
Yes.
Okay, so if, let me just undo that for you. Can you circle now where the gates are located? What did you do when you chatted with Border Patrol? You said you were on the other side of the gates. How did you get into the property?
At that point, we then got off our vehicle and we opened the gate.
Okay, was the gate unlocked?
And they had a chain, I believe.
And what did you do with the chain?
Just took it off, opened it, and opened the gate.
So was it just wrapped, the chain, or was it locked?
At that point, it didn't have a lock, it was just wrapped around.
Okay, and so you opened the gate at that point. Did y'all drive in?
No, at that point, we just started walking in.
Okay. And when you walked in, what did y'all do?
When we walked straight towards the residence through the road.
Okay, and so I see a dirt path on the map that's on the screen. Is that the dirt road you followed?
Yes, correct. It's gonna be this road here.
And what did you do after you followed the dirt road? Where did y'all go?
We went towards back of the residence, towards this side, due to the fact we couldn't find a way, the fencing it had. We're trying to way to jump the fence or go under the fence.
So there was actually a fence behind the house?
Yes, correct.
And that area where the magenta
Yes.
line is that you just drew? Okay. And what did you find as you walked along the fence line?
We were able to find, which looked like a ladder that was placed to be able to jump the fence, which was located behind this structure. So the ladder should be located around this area.
And when you say a ladder, could you describe what that ladder structure was like over the barbed wire fence?
It's just a ladder, probably a 4 or 6 feet ladder that was placed on top of the fence. Then it had another part going down on the other side.
So it's just two regular ladders along the fence line, or is it one ladder with two pieces? Do you recall?
Do not recall.
But it was a ladder on, somehow there was a ladder structure on each side of the fence?
Correct.
And what did y'all do, were you all four together at this point?
At this point we were, since we were able to find that access to go over the fence, all four went over the ladders, over the fence.
And how large was the area that was fenced in that area? Do you recall?
Do not recall, but
Did you search inside the fence line, or did you go outside that fence line?
we went outside the fence line. Once we jumped that ladder, we located another fence where we did have to go under the fence,
Okay, and so you actually went under the other
a
fence?
second fence.
Did y'all go together? Did you split up? What did you do when you were in this area?
Once we went under the second fence, we started to divide ourselves a little bit wider, try to divide and see what we could see. I did have to stay with Deputy Cabrera, I could not leave her side, so it was mostly 3 searching part.
So the two of you went one way and the other two deputies went off in other directions?
That's correct.
Do you know what direction you and Deputy Cabrera went?
At this point, we went more of the east and then south style this time.
Do you recall if you came to a dirt road? Did you go as far as the dirt road?
Yes.
You did. Did you go past the dirt road? Or did
Oh.
you just go to the dirt road?
We went down to the wash that is located down here, in this area.
Okay,
Into the wash, after the wash, we hit this dirt road.
okay. And how did you get from where you were down to the wash?
Where we were, we just started walking east to the depth of this search.
So you went east and then south?
Okay.
And do you know what the other deputies did? If you know.
Do not recall, they were to my left, so probably a little bit up more and around the same area.
They were to your left?
They were to my left, sorry.
Okay, so if you're walking east, then that would put them north of you?
A little bit, not very far.
Okay, and so you think you all hiked around down to the wash? Did you all go that direction, or did they go different directions?
No, it was basically most of the same direction, just a little widespread of feet apart.
Okay. And then when you came down to the wash, did you discover anything?
No, did not discover anything.
What was the brush like? Do you remember?
It was medium-sized, dry, probably knee-high.
If anything had been laying in the brush or hiding in the brush, would you have seen it if you were not right on top of it?
I'm object to, we,
Overall.
No, at this point, honestly, no, we're not searching really low.
You weren't searching low, but if someone had been hiding in it, would you have been able to see them?
No, honestly, no.
At any point, did you see any sign that there had been large groups of people through that area?
No,
Did you see any sign of anything?
not at the moment.
Okay. And then you said you hiked down into the wash. Did you see anything in the wash?
No, nothing.
And then you said you hiked over to the dirt road. Is that right?
Yes,
Is that like a driveway through the Kelly property?
it's like a 2-track driveway around the property.
And what did you do when you got to that driveway?
Once we got to the driveway, we decided to go back, myself, Deputy Cabrera, decided to go back to the residence, see if we could speak with Ms. Kelly, see if she had been in contact with Mr. Kelly, either telephone or he probably made it back to the residence.
And without telling us what she said, did you all talk to Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
And then what did you do after you talked to Mrs. Kelly?
After we talked to Ms. Kelly, we then got back into our fully marked patrol unit, myself and Deputy Cabrera, and drove down to the 2-track we had, came walking back to the residence.
And did you encounter anyone?
Once we drove down the 2-track, later on we encountered Sergeant Yuya Garcia.
And did Sergeant Garcia tell you that she heard something?
Yes, Sergeant Yuya Garcia stated that she had heard a canine down the 2-track, and to make herself drive down there to see if we could locate Mr. Kelly or the canines he was with at the time.
Sergeant Garcia was your supervisor on that occasion, is that right?
Yes, she was.
And so she directed you to head on down the driveway to see if you could find the dogs and Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
And did you do that?
Yes, we did.
And what did you observe when you drove down the road?
When I started driving down the road, I then observed the Border Patrol agents walking up the dirt road along with Mr. Kelly.
Did you see anything else with Mr. Kelly?
Mr. Kelly was carrying, well, he had his canines, and then he also was carrying a long rifle on his right arm.
You said his canines. His dogs, how many dogs?
Yeah, that I recall, I remember one. You have two.
You just recall one dog?
Yes.
Okay. And you said he was carrying something else with him? What else was he carrying?
He was carrying a long rifle, an AK-47.
And how was he carrying that?
He was carrying it by the stock, the back part of the weapon, and the muzzle was pointing behind him.
And I see you pointing to your right shoulder. Is that the way that he was carrying it, over his right shoulder?
Yes, correct.
And did you document in your report which arm he was carrying it on?
Do not recall if I documented which arm it was.
If I showed you a copy of your report, would that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1.6. Is that a copy of your report?
Yes.
Could you take a look and see if that refreshes your recollection? refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Did you document it?
Yes, I did.
And what did you document?
Documented the long rifle was on his right arm, right side.
Did you note what the long arm was? Did you note any details about it?
The details that really stand out to me was it had an approximate 3 or 4 in length inch flashlight with an orange button. It was on the right side of the firearm, long rifle, by the barrel. It was, what really standed out to me was the orange button, and that it was being held with something that looked like black duct tape.
Did you notice what kind of weapon it was?
Notice it was appeared to be an AK-47.
Did you note anything about the stock or the grip?
The stock and the grip was a dark in color wood grip, handle, and stock.
And did you notice anything about the metal?
The metal you can see is worn out, light charcoal gray color.
After you made those observations, did you talk to Mr. Kelly while you were there on the road?
Yes, I
And do you see Mr. Kelly here in the courtroom?
did. Yes.
Would you describe what he's wearing and where he's sitting for the court, please?
He's wearing a long sleeve, squared blue, light blue shirt. He's wearing a Levi's jacket, vest.
Before I move on from the weapon, did you note anything about whether the AK-47 had a strap or not?
Do not recall.
You don't remember? And when you chatted with Mr. Kelly, what is it that he told you happened that day?
What he stated that day when I spoke to Mr. Kelly was that he had heard a gunshot.
Did he tell you where he was, first of all?
He was standing by the kitchen island in his residence.
By his kitchen island?
Yes.
And what did he tell you he observed? Where did he observe something through?
When he was standing by the kitchen island, he observed through his living room window. He had observed those 5 subjects, possibly wearing backpacks, camouflage, and possibly wearing carrying rifles.
Did he tell you whether they were running or walking?
That they were running south, and he had also seen his horse was running back and forth in distress.
So he said there were 5 subjects. He saw them from the kitchen through the living room window, and he saw 5 subjects running south.
Correct.
Does that accurately summarize that part of the statement you just told me?
Yes.
And then, did he say if he heard anything?
He did say he had heard 1 gunshot.
What did he say he saw when he heard the gunshot?
He saw all those subjects running south,
And did he see anything else with respect to his horse?
and his horse running back and forth, startled.
And did you indicate that he said his horse was in distress?
Yes.
Does that accurately summarize that part of Mr. Kelly's statement?
Yes.
What did he say he did after he made those observations?
After he made those observations, he stated he went to his front door where he has the AK-47, and he grabbed it and walked outside.
What did he say about the AK-47 and where he keeps it?
He then made the comment when he was grabbing the AK-47 of his baby's always by the door.
Okay, does that accurately summarize what Mr. Kelly told you?
Yes.
And you said that he went outside, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Did he tell you which door he exited?
The main, by the living room door, where the gun was.
So is that on the
It's going to be on the
north side, the east side, south side?
south side of the residence.
Okay. So that house is sort of at an angle, right?
Correct.
So the south side, is that also like southeast? The southeast patio door?
Yeah.
Let's go back to the map. So if this is north-south on the property, let me zoom it in for you. Can you point with using the map, using the pointer, which side of the house you believe that was? Was there a pergola out that direction? Was there a pergola on the side of the area where you thought he came out of the house? Or was it the other side of the house? Do you know what a pergola is?
No.
Gazebo?
Gazebo? Do not recall.
You don't remember?
No.
And so the area where you've just drawn the map, it looks like there's a wall around it, and that's where the front door is. Is that where you think he came out?
Yes,
You think he told you he came out the front door?
that's correct.
And did he say what he did after he came outside?
After he came outside, he just stated he followed them with his canines.
And you said a minute ago that he saw the subjects, and what did he tell you they were, what did he tell you about what he observed?
He observed the subjects that they were wearing camouflage, also backpacks, and some were carrying rifles.
Did he say they were carrying rifles, or did he say they were something else?
They were carrying rifles.
And does your report document that they were carrying rifles, or that he told you they were possibly carrying rifles?
The report does say I stated possibly.
And which is accurate?
Possibly is accurate.
So he told you that he exited the residence, he saw the subjects, and they were possibly carrying rifles.
That's correct.
And you said you also remember him saying that they were carrying backpacks, is that right?
Yes.
And did you say camouflage?
Yes, correct.
Did you have information that somehow there were reports of shots fired?
All information of shots fired was the one when it came over the radio.
It got dispatched out that way?
Correct.
And so did you ask him about that?
Didn't ask him directly about the shots or.
Did you ask him if the subject shot at him?
I did ask him what he had heard and what the shot, if they had shot at him. Correct.
And how did he respond?
He responded he did not know of what direction they were shooting, or if they had met other cartel members and they were doing a shootout.
Okay, so let's stop with the direction first. He told you he didn't know what direction they shot, is that right?
That's correct.
So does that accurately summarize what he said to you?
Yes.
And then you said, he said something about a shootout. Can you tell me what that was about?
It was about, he didn't know if the reason why they were running or the shot was fired, if it was another rival cartel members had a conflict between each other.
Have you ever seen that happen in Keno Springs?
No.
And so he said he thought they encountered another cartel, and what did he say he thought happened?
He did believe that there were just cartel members, rivals that shot at each other and they just started running south.
And did he say that he thought they were scared from the shots?
Yes.
Does that accurately summarize what he told you?
Yes.
What did he tell you he did after he made those observations?
After I made those observations, that's when he just started tried to follow the subject south with his canines.
And did he tell you how many canines or dogs he had with him?
Do not recall.
You don't remember if you documented that in your report?
Correct.
If I showed you your report, would that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Is it still in front of you?
Yes.
Could you take a look?
He did an survey. He didn't see him anymore. He wasn't able to have visual of them. He stated they probably made it south and wasn't able to see him.
So he said he never saw them again after he followed them with his dogs.
Correct.
And he said they made it south.
We don't need to repeat every time, this goes to all counsel, okay? Because you're all doing it. We don't need to repeat every time what the witness has just testified to as a preface to the next question. Just ask the next question, right? It's not directed just at this one. Common practice, it takes up time, it's a waste of time. Just ask the next question.
Did he tell you where he thought they made it back to?
Back south towards Mexico, the border.
Does that accurately summarize what he told you?
Yes.
Now, after you had this conversation with Mr. Kelly, did you talk to him about another officer?
I did inform him that Deputy Cristobal Castaneda, badge number 144.
You knew this one. Sorry.
I apologize.
It's all right. You know, people get up there, they get a little nervous, very understandable, especially under the circumstances. They don't even realize how fast they're talking about doing that. But, so just trying to slow down.
Apologize, John. I did tell him that Deputy Cristobal Castaneda, badge number 144, would be the main officer of the case, and he would be speaking with them.
So Castaneda was the main officer, is that what you said? I'm
Yes.
sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing you, that's why I'm kind of repeating what you're saying, so I'm sure I have it.
Yes, he was the main officer.
Okay, and so you told George he was gonna talk to him,
Yes.
and after you told him that, what did you do next?
After that, myself and Deputy Cabrera, apologize, got in our unit. That's when I asked Mr. Kelly if he needed a ride back to the residence.
And what did he say?
He stated no, that he was going to walk back with his 2 canines.
At some point later, were you contacted, does that end your investigation in this case?
Yes, at that day it was.
The next day, were you contacted by the Criminal Investigation Division?
Yes, I was the following day.
And when you were contacted by them, what did they ask you to do?
They asked me if I could describe the weapon, or if I could identify the weapon that Mr. Kelly was carrying the day, on 30th.
Did you go and look at a weapon?
Yes, I went to the sheriff's office, to the Criminal Investigations Division office, where they showed me a weapon.
And was it the right weapon?
No, it was not.
And do you remember what time that was?
Did not recall the time.
Would your report reflect what time?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to take a look?
During the day, we were asked by the Criminal Investigations Division to assist them in searching the residence for the weapon.
What time did you go out to assist with that search warrant?
Do not recall the exact time.
Would it help if you looked at your report?
Yes. It was at 11 a.m. in the morning.
And when you got out there at 11 a.m., did they ask you to look at a different weapon?
Yes, I was asked to look at a different weapon.
And where was that weapon?
That weapon was located in a room. It was found by Detective Sergeant Flores. It was located behind a door to a room, beneath a coat.
And when you looked at that weapon, what did you discover?
When I discovered and I saw that weapon, I realized it was the same weapon I had seen Mr. Kelly carrying the day before.
And could I need to show the witness a picture? I'm going to show you an image from State's Exhibit 34, and it's image number 4636. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
And what does that item appear to be?
The item appears to be an AK-47, the weapon I had seen Mr. Kelly carrying the day before.
Is that the item you identified as the AK-47 that Mr. Kelly was carrying on January 30th of 2023?
Yes, it was.
You're going to move for admission of image number 4636 in item 34?
Just a minute, I'm trying to track it.
You want to look at this one?
So what's the exhibit?
34, Your Honor.
Okay, so it's not photos of,
It's image number 4636. It's one item in exhibit 34. Image 4636.
I'm sorry, it's just not tracking again, I'm just trying to see if I can track so I can call it up by the number. But let me just get clarity if I may, this is evidence number 34,
Exhibit 34, correct,
photo of the rifle.
correct. Image number 4636.
For this photo, marked now as 34, I would have no objection.
Right, so this is one page from, as I understand it, another exhibit, exhibit 34, without objection, page number 4636, and exhibit 34 is can be displayed to the jury.
And is that the weapon that you observed?
Yes, it was.
That's the AK-47 Mr. Kelly was handling?
Yes.
I'm going to show you another image. This is 4637.
In the same,
Yeah.
thank you.
And do you recognize that item?
Yes.
And what is that item?
That's the AK-47 Mr. Kelly was carrying.
Is that the other side of it?
Yes, correct.
Move for admission of exhibit 34, item number, image 4637.
No objection.
Page 4637 from exhibit 34 is can be displayed to the jury.
And is that the other side of the weapon?
Yes, correct.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask the detective to show the witness the weapon, which we have in evidence.
Just so you know, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I've ordered and had this particular item of evidence as a weapon double checked and triple checked, just to make sure it has no live ammunition in it. So I'm assured that this is completely safe for display.
Detective Ainsa, could you please show the witness exhibit 10, State's Exhibit 101? And please don't do it so that it doesn't show to the jury. Deputy Monreal, do you recognize that item?
Yes.
And what is that item?
It's the AK-47 Mr. Kelly was carrying on January 30th.
Your Honor, move for admission of State's Exhibit 101. Could you show defense counsel, please, without showing the jury? And I'm not sure what exchange is happening, but if there's some kind of question, we need to have it on the record. And if counsel's touching things, she needs to put on a pair of gloves.
Why don't you talk to this one, she'll have the answers, if any questions.
Getting identification on some of that.
Your Honor, could we have a discussion sidebar about,
All right, let's do this. Now let's do that.
had moved for admission of State's Exhibit 101, and if council will check your exhibit list that we emailed you this morning, it's on there.
101 is a good.
Your Honor, could the detective display this for the jury, please?
Yes. Why don't you come over here? Come over here.
And while the detective is displaying that for the jury, is there also inside the box the black electrical tape and the flashlight that you observed that were on the flashlight?
Yes, correct.
Oh, that stays in the box.
Can you turn around so the jury can see it? And Deputy Monreal, when you looked in the box, was there also,
Sorry to interrupt.
sure,
So, for obvious reasons, well, this has been admitted in evidence. For obvious reasons, we don't intend to send this back with you to the jury room, as we will with all the other exhibits. If you really need to see it, we may do it, but if you take whatever look you need to use right now, or have right now, to make sure you have a familiar with the exhibit, because it might not be available to you yet.
the judge, I think, wants them to get a better look, so if you could move a little, maybe a little
Do
closer.
you have a question about the problem viewing the exhibit? Hold on a second. What's the issue?
Your Honor,
What's
is it
your-
proper to ask a question regarding an attachment, I'm sorry, an attachment that was added onto the weapon to the gun over there?
You and the other jurors will be allowed to ask questions at the close of the witness's testimony. So write it down so you don't forget. Has everyone had a chance to look at the weapon the way you want to? Yes, juror number 10.
I would appreciate some accurate measurements of the weapon.
All right, put that in a question, and we'll see if we can address it better.
Put it away.
Yeah.
All right, you can put it away. Are you done with the exhibit?
I'm not, Your Honor. I just need to show the electrical tape and the flashlight.
Okay.
Deputy, you also mentioned electrical tape and
Why
a
don't you
flashlight?
get back up here facing the witness again?
You also mentioned electrical tape and a flashlight. Is that also contained in the box?
Yes, correct.
Is that the electrical tape and the flashlight you saw on the weapon in the way that it is shown in the photographs?
Yes, it was.
Could you hold that up just so that the jury can see it, please?
The back?
The bag, please.
No, not the tape and the flashlight.
Can you flip it around? Detective Ainsa, could you maybe display that for the jury? I think some folks down here on the other end are having trouble seeing it.
May I maybe pause right here, because I'm not sure what's in that little question.
Yeah, why don't you go to the defense table? We're going into the lunch hour a little bit, but I would just prefer to finish this so we can put this stuff away. So, sorry about that.
May we go on the headset, Roman?
All right, let's recess for lunch. I'm going to send the jury out. We'll stay here and keep working on any issues. You're excused for lunch. Remember the admonition of the court. We're going to recommence at 1:30 this afternoon. Please be back in the jury room slightly before 1:30.
We rise before.
The records show that the jury is absent, and Ms. Wilbur. Everyone else can have a seat. You can have a seat, stay or leave as you wish, but if you're gonna stay, have a seat.
Your Honor, the envelope is still in there. Just want it removed from the plastic bag so it doesn't provoke a question what's in the envelope. We don't have it omitted yet because it's done with another witness, and it should be walked across to the jurors.
What's in the envelope?
Casings.
Your Honor, that's the casings I mentioned that you said not to worry about, so I wasn't gonna worry about it. We have a good faith belief that the expert who shot the weapon is going to appear tomorrow and identify those casings.
But that's all that's in the bag, the casings?
No, in the bag is the flashlight and the black electrical tape, in addition to the casings.
An envelope.
The casings,
They're inside an envelope.
that's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Can we take the
Is he-
envelope out and let them see the plastic bag? It's all-
Is the plastic bag sealed?
I'm not sure.
Let me see the plastic, where is it? I haven't seen any of this stuff. I just need to see the bag. Let me see. Well, plastic bag, you know. Yeah. Right, okay, so the question I was asking was whether it was sealed with tape to preserve the integrity of the chain of custody evidence. I'm not seeing that on the plastic bag, so we'll just take the other little bag, little manila envelope that the casings are in, just take them out. And
I
then
don't
you
have a
can-
problem with that, Your Honor, as long as we put them back. The box itself was sealed until the court unsealed it to check to make sure that the weapon was safe for the jury, so.
you wanna
That
see-
was the integrity seal, just for the record.
So, yeah, there's no integrity seal on this bag.
Correct.
So when you want to display it to the jury, you can just take the casings out, keep them separate, and then you can take the other things out of the bag. even.
Sounds fine,
It'll
Judge.
be even better. How's that, Ms. Waldorf? Does
That's
that work?
exactly what I was requesting, Your Honor.
All right. Done deal, then, it's 5:12, we'll continue at 1:30 after lunch.
Can someone
You
give,
can reseal this up if you want. Just do it.
If
Yeah.
the detective could